I watch Boss's bar fight self-defense tapes every night.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Oh, I did a seminar with him a few months ago, and
Nice.
I brought that up. I was like, Boss Room's lethal self-defense. So I've met him a few times over the year. He's always been like my idol for MMA.
Yeah.
He's
How could he
amazing.
not
And
be?
yeah, and I've had the opportunity to train with him a bit. And this time I finally told him, I was like, hey, I'm gonna like fangirl out a little bit. I was like, I've always wanted to tell you this and I didn't, and now we're teaching a seminar together. I was like, I used to have your lethal street fighting DVD like way before I started training and all these things, and he was just like laughing his ass off. He's like, do you still have it? And I was like, I wish, because that was pure gold.
Story of the Fight listeners, welcome. Everybody is in for a special treat. As always, I'm joined by the co-host Will, but today we have a very special guest, Mr. Chris Camozzi, one of the OGs of MMA, most recently fighting in bare knuckle boxing, taking out Bubba McDaniel. This was this last October, if I'm correct. Am I right there, Chris?
Yeah. Yep, you're correct.
Awesome. So, hey, first of all, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast. Really appreciate it. I know that you had been in communication with Will here recently. And let me tell you, man, as soon as Will started talking to you, Will was like a little schoolgirl, dude, just super excited, letting us know, Will, I'm putting you on blast, but he was super pumped. And we've been super pumped since we found out we're going to get to talk to you. So thanks again, man.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I don't know if I can confirm that part, but
yeah. Hey, Will and I, it was on Reddit. So I've been a long time Redditor, right? Like I used to print merchandise for them, do all this stuff. And I still post, they call it lurking. I look on there every day. I'm scrolling through. I mean, I have a routine, right? My girl will tell you, we get in bed, end of the night, and I scroll Reddit for probably an hour before I fall asleep. That's where I find all my news, everything else. Like, if you're familiar with Reddit, you know what I'm talking about. It's endless. So
yeah.
I've got a system. I go through like, I don't know, I'm OCD maybe. It's like an exact system where I go through certain subreddits, and I happen to see Will responded on there and was like, I have a podcast. I'd love you to come on.
Yeah,
Awesome.
That was so I remember talking about lurking, but I remember when you took the Jacare fight and you did the Ask Me Anything on Reddit, and I was like, and then like I don't know if it was the next fight after that, or I remember shortly after that you did the whole like fundraiser with your sponsorships and had the logo on your shirt and everything, the r/MMA logo and everything. And I was like, damn, that's so sick. There's like a fighter who's on here. And like, I remember back then, and I was looking for it before we did this interview. And I was like, man, okay. So he posted that for the Jacare fight. That was like 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I looked up on the, like, you can look up into like subreddit statistics and everything like that. And I saw that, so right now the MMA subreddit's got like 2.2 million subscribers. And I looked back at when you posted that, and it was at like 40,000. And I was like, dang,
really?
It's so crazy that like that's such a massive growth since then. I remember back then, that's just so crazy to me that it's blown up like that. But that's what I mean. Back then, when you started rocking like the r/MMA gear, I was like, damn, we got a fighter on here. Like, it's like we're like official now. Like the MMA subreddit's official.
Yeah, I think I got to shout out Joe Lozon too. He might have been on before me. But dude, they came through because what I did was a crowdfunding sponsorship. So they kid Gabe Stevenson, he had brain cancer and everything. He's good. I mean, I don't want to say he's good now, but he's still going. God, I don't know what's the best way to put that. Yeah. But since then, like it was kind of like terminally ill. So we did a crowd fund where I told my manager too, he kind of helped me set it up. I was like, look, I don't want to hold any of the money. I wanted to go to him. That way there's never any kind of like discrepancy, anything. But Reddit helped out his family an insane amount. I mean, after that, we started getting connections with like Colorado Rockies players and stuff that like,
oh, dang,
started paying his mom's rent and all these other things so she could be in the hospital with him. It's a really cool story. It breaks
Man,
my
that's
heart.
really
Like, I don't
cool.
want to put too much on blast.
Mhm.
We don't, I didn't do that for like
Yeah,
attention. It was, but they came through. I'll say that.
that's cool. That's cool because I mean, for me on my side, I don't really see that part of it. I just see, damn, we got like an actual fighter on here, and like there's like all this stuff happening
Yeah.
behind the scenes that it's like really cool. The actual cool part.
Yeah. No, I hear you. There's a ton of fighters that lurk the forums, whether it's MMA.tv, which is the underground.
Yeah.
I'm on all of them. A lot of guys are. They just won't always comment because then you're just taking in more hate.
There's some people, I mean, as cool as the MMA community is, there's a lot of like weirdos out there who are like, I don't know, like I mean there's a lot of trolls and everything, I guess, but MMA is kind of brutal with the trolls.
Yeah, I mean, they're all brutal. I don't care. As far as like a community as a whole, it's been amazing for me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll probably be on Reddit as long as they're around, or I'm around. One of the two. They might Reddit might outlive me for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great to when I saw you comment on there. I'm like, fuck it, yeah, let's do a podcast. Like a fellow Redditor, that like it seemed like a fun time.
Yeah, I would. So, like I said, so I did some lurking, right? And I saw you talking about when Pitbull fought in Illinois, and he was like had the whole issue after his fight with the doctors and stuff like that. You posted about one of your Glory fights and dealing with the commission and like the appeal process and stuff. And I was like, man, I don't think I've ever really heard. I mean, you don't hear about appeals that often in combat sports, but they do happen, and it's kind of rare. But you never really hear anything after the fact. So, do you mind just kind of like telling? I saw your comment, but Ramiro didn't. I don't think so. Do you mind kind of telling him what happened in your Glory fight and with the commission over there?
Yeah, so actually, this is super interesting, and I love it because nobody's ever asked me. So I fought in Glory. What was his name? Fuck, I don't even
It was
remember.
Riot. Was that his name? I don't know how to say.
Riot Waller.
Riot Waller.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
Riot Waller. Tough kid for sure. And if you go back and watch the fight, it's on YouTube. He rocked the. What are we on here? Can I cuss? I was gonna say rock.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're fine.
He rocked the shit out of me. Like I'll fully admit that. First round, I slipped. He threw a head kick. I barely remembered most of it. In between rounds, my brother was cornering me, and he was just like, "Get it together!" Like looking at me, like, "Look at me." And I pulled it together. So he definitely won the first round. He had me staggered. The ref kind of messed up a little bit. He probably shouldn't have stopped. Like he stopped to see if I was good when Glory doesn't do a standing 8 count. Right. So I'll fully admit that. But the ref's job is not my job, right? He didn't stop the fight.
You take what you can
full
get.
Full transparency, he probably could have stopped the fight. He didn't. So it goes to the second round, third round. And then I start picking Riot apart. I'm winning. At the end of the third round, they go to judge's decision. Judges call it a draw, which means a draw in Glory. I don't know about every other sport, but in Glory kickboxing, a draw means they wipe the scorecards completely and it goes to a fourth round. They call it a sudden death round, where whoever wins that round wins. It doesn't matter. The rest of the fight doesn't matter. So I go out. Riot Waller starts the fourth round. He throws a bunch of combos, and I'd already had his leg like hurt. He's limping around. It was bleeding, everything. But he starts with a flurry, which is like 10, 15 seconds. And then the rest of the 3 minutes, I dominated. At the end of the fight, they rule a decision for Riot, which I was like, I was asking everybody. Even when I got in the back, like my brain was back. I'm telling you, my brain was kind of gone in the first round. Fully admitted. We get in the back, and I'm like asking the commission, I'm like, how did he win the fourth round? And even commissioners were telling me, they're like, I don't really know. It doesn't make sense. People were coming up to me, they're like, it doesn't make sense. whatever. So they rule the fight for Riot. I go home. I just take it as a loss. It's like a month later, I get an email from the Chicago Commission telling me they messed up on the scorecards. That Riot won the first round, and I won rounds 2 and 3. And
What?
So there shouldn't have been a overtime round.
There should have never been a 4th round. They told me I won and that I won the fight, and they asked me to dispute it. I bet I could still find the email. I should post that. So I'm like I'm not going to court, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no, just file dispute and it'll be overturned. So I did. Meanwhile, I mean, let me clarify. I was just going to like walk off from this. My management, everything, everybody was like, just walk off, fuck it.
Yeah.
Commissions, like, it's hard to overturn like a state governing body, whatever. You know, yeah, God. Sorry, this is like a really long time ago, but it's rare. But they asked me, they're like, no, file this. They sent me the forms, everything. I filed all of it.
They're telling you to do it.
And then, yeah, they asked me to. And then never heard back from them again. I bet I could actually, I've had the same email address forever. I bet I could find it. They told me I won the fight and that it was wrong.
And then they still didn't overturn it. Or did they end up doing it and just never contacting you?
No, they never overturned it. I never got paid the win money.
Jeez.
I sent it to Glory. I sent the actual email to Glory, like their behind the scenes person that runs like operations. I'm like, here's what the commission's telling me, everything. Where's my check? Never sent it. It was a giant waste of time. And it made me look like a fucking idiot because I went out and like disputed it. And then I posted about like, the commission hit me up, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, that's kind of where it's still a loss on my record, which I mean, you go back and watch the fight, people might have their own opinion, but I hate
this commission. You know what I hate awful.
More? No, it was. They almost didn't let me fight for like pre-fight medicals. I've never been stopped like pre-fight medicals. Like I'm healthy as fuck, everything. They made me wait around for hours. Then they almost didn't let me fight him because my record was so much bigger than his. It was just like a giant cluster. There's a woman, I'm going to say Nancy right now. And I could be wrong. Maybe you guys can Google it after. But I'm pretty sure like her name was Nancy something. She was the worst. Like she stopped almost every fighter in the pre-fight medicals and was like, I don't know. Yeah. What a long, like drawn out thing.
So we go from,
I just hate seeing a loss.
Yeah. So they go from them saying like, hey, our bad. We messed up the scorecard. You won, should have won. We'll take care of it. We just need you to start the process. And then they're like, we're good.
They're like, actually, no, we don't want to do that.
Yeah. This is a long process for us too. We'll just let this one go.
That's crazy.
I'll do you one better because I want to help you guys out too. I'm going to search my email after this and see if I can find it. And I'll send it to you. If you want to post it, you can. I don't care. Yeah, I never got paid. It never got overturned. I'll see which email. I'm going to search a few of them. But yeah, that's kind of where it's at.
You had experience with the appeal process before, right? Didn't who did you fight like way back in the day that they appealed and then you ended up winning, right? Was it Joe?
Yeah, Joey Villasenor.
That's what. Okay, yeah, I remember Joey.
The only other time I dealt with that, the New Mexico Commission contacted me. It was a draw, so I didn't lose, I didn't win. It was a draw. I went to New Mexico to fight Joey Villasenor, who's like a longtime MMA guy, and they ruled it a draw. Same thing. I went home and was like, "Fuck it, move on." And then they called me and they were like, "Hey, the commission wants to dispute this." I bet I could find those emails too. I was like, "Fuck you! I'm not coming. I'm not flying to New Mexico. All this stuff. Like, just do what you're gonna do." I thought it was against me. I thought they were gonna make it a loss for me. Mm-hmm. So I didn't show up. They asked me to come to like this like trial thing. I didn't go. And then I got a letter saying that I won. And that was back when shark fights is what it was called. And Shark Fights did pay me after the overturn, but I didn't show up. I didn't go. I was like, look, do what you're going to do. I'm not getting hometowned. And then BS New York came out, and he's like, I got hometowned in my own hometown.
Was it his team that appealed, or was it the commission that looked into
commission, it? So once I saw the trial documents, somebody added up the scorecards wrong. So, like there's a 10-round.
What's going on here?
I mean, this is 2 times in like 50 fights, and it doesn't happen very often. And that was, would you say what year was it? That was probably 2012.
It's got to be, it's got to be. I feel like I was in high school when that happened, so it must have been in that range. 2011, May of 2011.
Okay, so 2011. I think the Riot Waller was 2019 or something. So very far apart. But I was like, oh my God, here we go again. But that one, I was like, well, I didn't show up. I told them like, fuck off, and they ruled it as a win, and then I got a check.
You're like, never
mind. The thing that bothers me more is like, what'd you say?
You're like, never mind. I'm sorry. I told you guys to fuck off.
No, I still mentioned it's like hire people that can add up. What happened in the New Mexico one? What happened in the New Mexico one was they showed the scorecards. The scores were right. Somebody did the math wrong. So it's a 10-round must system, right?
Yeah.
So it's either 10 or 9. Somebody added in, what was it? 10, 10, 9 as 28.
And then that's how they got the draw.
Common mix-up.
Yeah, so when they ruled it a draw. Yeah. This is the problem with judging. It's like, we can go all day about this. Like, there's judges. I've done podcasts about it. Everything like Adelaide Bird. There's other ones they literally don't watch the fights, or like the governing body that like checks this, because it's happened in the UFC. Like they've added up the scorecards wrong.
Yeah,
and it's like we're talking about 3 numbers here. If you can't add up 3 numbers.
Like, can't we get these guys some calculators ringside? Like,
hey, just wait till they get into the 5-round fights. Things get crazy.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, like, who was it recently? Doug Crosby was like, he's like, you guys got to understand that I only get like 15 seconds to write down the number. So, like, when you think about it, like 5 to 10 seconds is me figuring out who won, and then I only get 5 seconds to write it down, and it's like, is that too hard? Like, it doesn't seem too hard.
I got a calculator right here.
Yeah.
Crosby's a little bit out there.
Yeah, I don't know is he scoring the rounds after the fight? Is he trying to remember who won each round like after the fight, or I don't know what he's doing.
So if you look at the scorecards, they write down and they have to turn it in each round, and then at the end they're asked to add it up. So maybe that's too much. Is 3 numbers? Somebody adds it up. They need
to have like an addition team who like will take the cards at the end and just tally it up for them.
Dude, all they have to do is have a pre-made chart for them, and they're like, if you have this combination of numbers, it equals this. You know what I mean? So it's super easy for them. Yeah, it's super easy. We figured it out.
You would think, but changing state legislation.
Yeah,
that sounds very logical for state legislation.
Well, what's crazy is Colorado passed they're going to allow like ONE FC rules, and I'm assuming that's going to allow ONE FC scoring also. So maybe, I don't know, maybe that will eventually hopefully take over. But I saw you were saying you might want to fight on that card.
I mean, I would love to. I've always wanted to. Before my career is done, I was a giant fan of Pride, so I always wanted to go to Pride fighting before UFC.
Yeah,
not before. If I had my choice back then, and you were like, "Do you want to fight in Pride or UFC?" It would have been Pride all day long.
Yeah.
I mean, I do love what the UFC is doing, but Pride was just like, that was the roots for me. I used to stay up. I would bounce at night and get home at like 3 a.m, and Pride would be coming on. So I'd stay up till like 6 o'clock in the morning watching Pride.
Yeah, it's the best.
The rule set, the fact that their fights were all about like, what do the fans want to see?
Yeah. And then they took that even further.
Yeah, maybe a little too far.
Maybe too far sometimes. Yeah, we got the Shogun Pride glove. Pride was awesome.
Yeah, see, back when like Shogun, Vanderlei, Nogueira, Mark Coleman, Mark Kerr,
Yeah.
back then it was just like they were freak fights, kind of.
Yeah.
I remember Miracle Crow Cop fighting Vanderlei, and like they didn't give a shit about the weight, anything. If like the
No.
guys agreed to fight, there were guys that were 100 and I'm struggling for names right now, but like 180 pounds fighting like guys that were 300 pounds.
Yeah. Well,
Bob Sapp
Mirko
fighting
fought
anybody.
Yeah. I was gonna say Mirko fought Bob Sapp. He must have had like 80 pounds on him. And Mirko's not a small guy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was just like what the fans want to see, which is cool.
Yeah.
Because
Did you
as a
watch
fan,
the
like I still watch all the fights.
Yeah. Did you watch the Bellator versus Ryzen card that they just had on New Year's?
I didn't ever since Pride, man. I've like
Yeah. It's tough.
Ryzen I have a hard time with because like what's Ryzen? Have they been running fights since?
So
don't get me wrong. If they called me, I'd fight for them. They gave me a date and everything. But other than that, like they're not running regular shows. Like, is it a promotion?
Yeah.
Is it just like a special event?
It is weird. Like it seems like they bring in guys like to beat their guys. It's really weird. Like they'll bring Floyd Mayweather in, and they're like, "We're gonna give you however many millions of dollars to fight like one of our top guys in a boxing match," even though this guy's like a kickboxer whose kicks are like his specialty. And like, we want you to come so everybody watches you beat one of our top guys. Just super weird. And we're gonna pay millions of dollars to do it.
I mean, I get it. I mean, I do. Like, so I talked about this on my podcast. So shameless plug here. I started my own podcast too called Involuntary Yoga. The reason I call it that is because I call jiu-jitsu that a lot of times. It's like yoga, but like I'm gonna bend you whichever way you don't want to bend.
Yeah.
It's involuntary. But yeah, it's the fact that like the fans want to see it, and you have two grown men that agree to it. So I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
If you agree to it, then don't have any excuses after.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's just fan friendly. It's fun to watch. Me as a fan, I'm like, oh hell yeah! Like I'm gonna watch this freak show fight.
Oh man, the New Year's card that they just had, the Bellator versus Ryzen one, was cool because like it reminded me of back in the day when like Chuck went over to Pride, right, and like Dana went with them, and they're like, "We got our best guy. He's gonna take on your best guys." It was kind of like that, right? And it's the guy who was running Pride is the guy who's running Ryzen, so like they got the music from Pride is playing in the arena and stuff, so it's just super nostalgic. This one didn't really have any like freak show fights because it was pretty much like 1-to-1 with Bellator. But the last year's New Year's card, it was like full Pride kind of freak show fights sprinkled in throughout the whole card. It was chaos. There's a dude named Shrek who comes out there and looks like Shrek and he's fighting. It's crazy.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I like it to be like a pure sport too. Like I like good matchups. But again, yeah, as a fan, some of those freak show ones, like I guarantee you guys were a fan of the WWF or WWE now back in the day because you're like, whoa, like how did this guy beat that guy? Like he's huge. And it's just fun. And when it's a real fight, it's fun to watch. Or watching Hoist Gracie in UFC 1 like beat these giant muscled up, like roided out
took
guys.
out Andre the Giant though, bro? Come on.
Yeah.
And he body slammed him? Come on.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's entertainment. I understand that MMA is sports entertainment. I like them to tread the line though, right? Sports entertainment, awesome. I don't want MMA to go full sports entertainment. But I do want to see like the fights we want to see. Sometimes I don't care if the fight has any title contentions or anything else. Sometimes people just want to see it. Like the Masvidal and Nate Diaz. They made the BMF belt because like the casual fan like wants to see a belt on the line. But more like that was just a fan-friendly fight that people were like, if you put a belt on there, it makes both guys come together because they're like, all right, let's do it. There's a belt on the line. But sometimes like Pride was great at just getting two people that you wanted to see fight each other.
Yeah.
So it makes it fun for the fans, which is like BKFC will do that a little bit. I'm not signed with them, so I'm not like promoting them. They've come out and said, like, we don't care about rankings. We're going to put on the fights that fans
Yeah,
want to
didn't
see. Who fighters, we're going to make them fight.
Feldman, right? He was like, I saw him talking about it. He's like, who gives a fuck about rankings? Like, all that matters is you get to see the fights you want to see. And I was like, damn, that's sweet as it gets right there.
So as a fan, I can appreciate that. As a fighter,
Yeah.
you're kind of like, fuck.
So like, what do I gotta do now?
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm not the like big shit talker come out and like throw up all these theatrics and do all this and that.
Just have somebody run into the ring, dude, in your post-fight interview. They seem to do that in bare knuckle all the time, where like this random person runs into the ring and it's a little scuffle and you got a
glass of beer flying somewhere.
Listen, Romero, I'm gonna bring you out. You're gonna be my guy. I need somebody real friendly because
dude, I'll come flying in there like a spider monkey, bro. It's on. It's on, man.
I got your back.
For sure, let's do it. Now, if you don't mind, man, I would like to kind of get to know a little bit of. I always love asking current fighters or previous fighters, whoever. It's like just how exactly you got into the fight game. It's always so interesting to me that somebody says, you know what, like I'm down to lock myself in a cage with somebody and start throwing blows. But if I read this correctly, you were in rugby. Is that right? In high school, got some collegiate rugby in as well.
Correct. Yeah.
So what got you into rugby? Because it's safe to say it's not the most popular sport in the States, right? And then, like, what made you say, like, hey, I'm going to transition from rugby over to mixed martial arts?
I would say there's nothing that made me transition from rugby to mixed martial arts, but I was always like a physical kid. Going back to, as far as I can remember, I remember my grandma took me to, was it Disneyland in LA years ago, because I'm from the Bay Area in California originally, but I moved to Denver when I was a young kid. And even back then, like I remember going on a ride with my grandma. It was like Magic Mountain or something, like a monster came out. And she was like terrified. And I was like, let's ride it again. I'm gonna punch that thing in the nose. Like I had a thing about like punching in the nose when I was a kid. And I was always just interested in like, yeah, I was always interested in like wrestling and like doing this and that, like everything physical. And I didn't actually get into wrestling until high school. So when my family moved from the Bay Area to Denver, they kind of made it like I had a choice. And I was like, all right, well, I'll move if I could start boxing. And my dad was like, okay, yeah, like we'll get you into boxing, blah, blah, blah. We moved. I never got into boxing. My parents got divorced, like fast forward. And then I just started doing it on my own. Like I was always interested in sports. Like I played football, all that stuff. When I got to high school, I saw wrestling and I was like, fuck yeah, I want to wrestle. So I wrestled all through high school. I played football a little bit. I ended up breaking my femur, or I fractured my femur.
Oh, dang.
Oh, geez.
So yeah, just to practice too. And it was like nothing cool. There's no cool story to it. It was like hitting drills when it was raining out. And I was hitting and like slipped and it like fractured in a weird way.
Oh, dang.
I stopped playing football, and then later down the road, I had a bunch of friends that played rugby. And rugby is not super popular in the US, but
yeah,
in Colorado, like there's quite a few high school teams and stuff. And like, you should play rugby. You should play rugby after wrestling. So I did, and then I loved it. So I played there, and then I went to college. Now, mind you, I'm not blowing this story up. When I played college rugby, it was like a club team. It wasn't some like big national team, but I still loved it. And I decided college wasn't for me, or at least where I was going. So I came home, and some guys that I wrestled with in high school started going to an MMA gym. And I was just working a job I hated, didn't have a college degree, yada, yada. And so I ended up going to this gym. They're like, come check it out. You'll really like it. And literally since the first day I walked in there, I started going every day. And I was fortunate enough. So I preach this a lot, like, and I didn't do this, but I preach it, like research the gym, find out who's teaching it. Cause there's a lot of, we'll shout about McDojos out there. that are just fake, like people teaching bullshit. I was fortunate enough, and I credit most of my career to this, is I walked into a gym owned by a guy named Brad Gum, who was only a couple years older than me, but he fought in like the early UFCs, like 20s. His debut was against Shoney Carter. That's how long ago it was.
Yeah.
But he was only like 5 years older than me. But he had fought like Carlos Condit, Joe Stevenson. Like he had probably like 30 fights. And he was like super caring, knew what he was talking about, and he like built me up. So luckily, literally luckily, because I didn't research anything. I was just like, yeah, let's do it. I went there and then trained under him. And yeah, he was a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Like he had all these credentials that I didn't even know. I just saw like pictures on the wall of him like fighting. I'm like, oh, that's cool. But I started going for fun. I didn't know that like local fights were a thing. I knew what the UFC was, but I didn't know how you got into it. But I just started going every day. And then finally he was like, hey, do you have any interest in fighting? I got this local promotion looking for people. And I was like, what? There's local promotions? Like, fuck yeah, like who would I fight? And it just kind of spiraled from there. Like to keep the story short, like I did my first fight. I had one amateur fight and then went pro.
Oh, jeez.
That's awesome.
This is like 2006, maybe 2007. So it wasn't nearly as popular, but
yeah,
I still think about that all the time. I'm glad you asked, because going back, if I had walked into some like bullshit gym, like I don't know, think about the Detroit Dust guy or whoever's out there.
Whoa, time out.
Teaching.
Time out, because
that's where Ramiro draws the line.
This is where I had a bone to pick with you, because I saw you going hard on my boy with Detroit Urban Survival Training, where he is teaching everybody perfect tactics to avoid attacks in urban scenarios or urban settings. Dude, I watched that podcast and I could not stop laughing with some of the videos that y'all were rolling on there, man, and your commentary as the videos were going.
Oh man, there's so many out there. That's what I'm saying. I was so fortunate, because what I preach now is like research the gym, find like the credentials, blah 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 blah. I didn't do any of that. I'm just trying to share with people getting into the sport like what you should do. I was just like so lucky to walk into an actual legit gym, because I would have gone to any gym. I had no idea.
Like they got noses in there. I could punch them. I'm there.
Yeah. I was like, oh, they're like wrestling, fighting each other. Fuck yeah, let's do it. And I mean, I didn't walk in there and just start like killing it. I got my ass kicked by everybody. And I still do. I mean, I think that if you find the right gym, you should get your ass kicked.
Yeah.
Even world champions, like I've trained with world champions, like they don't win every day. There's somebody that's always pushing them. So that's why I'm big on like picking the right gym. It doesn't have to be the biggest gym, but just find somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, well, I'm glad Ramiro also brought up that episode you did, because that's where I originally commented and was like, hey, also open invitation if you want to come on, because you were looking for any suggestions for questions and stuff for that podcast, and that's the first time I had ever seen what's his name? Is it Rob? What was his name?
Oh, Rob Ingram.
Is that his name? Yeah, Rob Ingram. Yeah, that's the first time I've ever seen him talk about that
Life
page. Yeah, so the McDojo Life page.
Really?
Anybody who's watching
awesome
this,
page. Awesome
yeah,
page.
Anybody who's going to be watching this knows about that page. But I've always seen it as like, yeah, there's lots of funny clips on here, but I don't really go deep into. I know he does like live streams and he talks about a lot of things, but I've never watched him. So when I watched the show that you guys did with him, I was like, I was very interested, because that's always been something that's been important to me too, because the first time I ever went into a jiu-jitsu gym, I was nervous. I was super nervous. I was like, I'm going out of my comfort zone here. I know I'm going to get my ass beat while I'm here. Like it's like you're putting yourself out on a limb, like for growth, right? You're being vulnerable,
You're in a
so that you can
state.
grow. Yeah. And so anybody who makes a living exploiting people who are putting themselves in that position where it's a hard position to put yourself in if you don't really need to, right? So anybody who exploits that is like the lowest level to me, like just the worst type of people. So seeing him talk about it and like why he does that, like why he runs that page and like his thought process behind it, I was like, damn, this is so much better than just like a funny like meme page that I thought it was. Like there's actual reason to this.
Yeah.
I thought that was super cool, and I'm glad you guys did that episode.
Dude, same to me, honestly. I've talked to Rob over the years, but I've never like interviewed him or anything. I didn't know any of that either. I thought it was just like fun and games, like ha ha ha.
Yeah.
I didn't realize like the darker side to it. And that episode was like really eye-opening. And that's why I wanted to like make sure people know, like, if you're watching this and you don't train or whatever, again, it doesn't have to be the biggest gym, but just like do your research. Make sure they know what they're talking about. And Rob said on there, he goes, even if you're a white belt and you're brand new and you want to teach people, as long as they're telling people, like, look,
Yeah.
I've only been doing this like a few months. It's just the guys that come out and they're like, oh, I'm like a world champion, this and that. And like, they're not.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it drives me nuts. And
it's
Ramiro,
like I said,
your
it's
boy
the lowest.
Detroit Dust, like, I'm never going to stop.
I'm never
gotta
gonna
tell you
stop.
No, because look, I do martial arts. I'm training guns. Like I've had jobs that like involve that. I've done executive protection, all these things for a long time that you don't really like exploit a ton and like put out videos and everything. And I've had other fighters come in and tell me, they're like, no, he's legit. I had one today. I didn't want to call him out because some of them are like acquaintances of mine, like legit fighters.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, like Joaquin Buckley and I kind of went back and forth in DMs. I don't know him. He was like, no, Dale's
Buckley
legit.
was also very open about backing him up, though, and he showed up on that guy's page multiple times. And
Well, he brought him in his corner, didn't he?
Yeah,
Buckley
he did.
Yeah.
And I thought it was for clout, and he actually hit me up personally. We were going back and forth in DMs, and I don't know him, never met him. And he was like, no, you're wrong. This guy's legit. And I was like, I know I'm not wrong. I'm 100% positive I'm not, because I know way better shit than that guy, and it's wrong. And what he's doing is going to get somebody killed.
Eventually 100%. It will happen.
Yeah, but I had another one today who I'm not going to call out, like who's an acquaintance of mine. And he's like, no, I've trained with him. It's legit. And he might be an acquaintance of mine, but it's not legit. It's wrong. And I'm not saying I know everything and I'm right, but the fact that you're teaching people, like even the video you saw, Will, if somebody has a problem with you, the best thing to do is walk up and shake their hand. Anybody that so I teach self-defense.
Yeah.
What my entire teaching of self-defense is to avoid and get away, right? I teach women, stuff like that. You don't confront them. If you can leave, you leave.
Yeah.
The only time you actually fight is if you like last resort. And he's talking about walking up and like shaking somebody's hand to deter them, which is absolutely wrong. Because would I walk up and shake his hand? Yeah, because I feel confident in myself and I'm trained and I'm like, all right, I'll beat the shit out of you. But
yeah,
to a random person where you're teaching self-defense, it wouldn't be like, if you see them looking at you weird, walk up to them. You're doing half the job for them.
Initiate it. You're like, come on.
Everything I teach
the aggressor.
Yeah. I don't even, when I teach self-defense, I don't teach people like necessarily submissions or any of that. It's like every chance you get to leave and run, because in self-defense, you're not being judged like, oh, what a pussy, he's running away. Like, get away.
Get away.
We're not teaching you to fight.
The thing that you're teaching right now, Chris, and the thing that you're talking about is a real life scenario. Like, this is what would best serve you in a real life scenario. If you're with a friend, you're having some drinks, somebody's eyeing you, that you can tell that there's an aggressor and they want to start a fight, the best thing to do is, like you said, avoid the situation altogether, right? But what's so scary, like there's this video of that same guy we're talking about where he's like, this is how you avoid if somebody's sitting in your back seat and they have a gun on you. And then like all of a sudden somebody jumps out in the back seat with the gun in its neck and he like turns all quick and all of a sudden he has the gun turned on them. And it's like, dude, somebody's going to see that. And in some type of scenario, when they have a gun pointed at their head, be like, I remember that Dust video. I'm going to bust that move out right now. And that's the last thing they know.
Yeah. And I mean, it can be picked apart a million ways. Like there are last resort options, right? Sometimes they're stupid and like they're not very likely, but that's your last resort. I like to think that first off, somebody that's sitting in the backseat of my car wouldn't have any ill will against me or a gun.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't let them sit behind me or get in my car. I think that I don't want to compliment the guy, but like there are last resort things.
Mhm.
I get it. But you just like you should teach people like all the others. Like I said, get away. Get away. Like just run. If there's a side door, nobody cares. Run out the side door. And his I don't want him to teach people to be confident and like, well, I can handle any situation. There was another one, I'll put out a longer video. It's coming out soon where like a guy's choking her and she's pushing in like the
Oh yeah, I saw that
top
one.
of his neck. I will, not to sound like an asshole, but I will strangle you to death. Like that's not going to deter me. Like this doesn't even hurt.
Yeah.
It might hurt some people, but ill intent, like mine, everything I teach in self-defense, like the very first thing I teach has nothing to do with physical. I tell people awareness, right? So pay attention. If you feel uncomfortable, even if you just feel it and you don't notice anything, you leave.
Yeah.
Right? Trust your gut. And then I teach like awareness, so paying attention. And if you see something kind of weird, somebody staring at you, and we're talking self-defense here, not like trained, whatever, like I'm good. If you see something and somebody's staring at you, whatever, leave. Who cares if you're wrong? What do you lose by being wrong if you just leave?
Yeah.
This guy is teaching people to engage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Like you said,
I
like,
could go all day on that.
like you said, like you don't teach necessarily like submissions, like in like self-defense situations like that, because like, okay, cool. You hit an armbar on a guy. It's not like you're going to get your like a win bonus. It's you don't get anything for finishing that. Like you said, there's last resorts, but like, I mean, why engage it?
There's this one move that he teaches that I really want to try where he like grabs onto your foot and then he pushes on your ankle and then everybody seems to like topple over. Like I want to try that.
Yeah.
Sounds like a massage.
Maybe when we're in the bare knuckle ring and you win your next fight, I'll hop in there and grab your foot and just push on your we'll give it a shot.
Yeah. I mean, even what was I gonna say? Boss Root and I talked about this. Like, there's so many different ways you could go with this. It's just real life. So if you take a self-defense class, this is part of the problem with self-defense classes. If you do it once, you do one every year, whatever, you will never remember that. Boss is like, I hate self-defense classes because like if you just do a class, the only way to train for situations is to do it over and over and over again towards reaction.
Yeah.
So people that just do one class, you will never remember that. If I walk up and I start grabbing you by your neck and strangling you, you're not going to remember the class you took like 3 months ago and be like, oh, they said to do this.
Yeah.
It
and
has
have
to
the
be
time
like,
to like think through that.
yeah, it has to be trained and ingrained. It has to be like a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So I do sometimes like, teaching self-defense classes. I'm like, listen, you should sign up at my gym or another gym. If you don't know one near you, I could recommend a good one. But it's got to be drilled.
Yeah.
UFC fighters don't walk in the cage and you're like, oh, I learned to punch once. We do it every day because you don't have to think about it. So sometimes like these seminars will build people's confidence up, and it's a false confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Even now, like I've been fighting for almost 17 years. I wouldn't not train for 3 months and be like, I'm good. I know how to fight. Like, my reactions are slow. Conditioning, everything. Like there's so much more that goes into it.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, you got in that Glory fight, real quick, in that Glory fight, you said you got head kicked in the first round, right? And you were like, they could have stopped it. And I don't remember much of it after that. Do you think you would have made it through the rest of that fight if you didn't have those reactions to fall back onto? Like,
oh,
no
absolutely
way.
Not. It was autopilot.
Yeah.
I had another fight that was complete autopilot. I talked about it today with a friend. It was in Glory too. I got rocked in the first round. I won by TKO in the second round. Walking back to do the interviews, like they were walking me back under the tunnel of the arena to do interviews, and I had to stop my brother. I didn't even ask my coach or anybody. My brother was cornering me. I was like, hey, come here for a second. He's like, what's up? And I was like, how did I win?
Oh
and
my
he's
God,
like, what do you mean?
So gnarly.
And I was like, how did I win? And he's like, you don't remember? I'm like, no. It was just autopilot. Like it's just reactions. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying like everybody would have that. It could be just a free thing, but what your body will function how you train it to, right?
Hmm.
And it's not going to come from one class. It's not going to come from two. It's not going to come from 20. It's going to come from ridiculous amount of drilling and practicing.
That's why I
That's a great
watch
message.
Boss's bar fight self-defense tapes every night.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Oh, I did a seminar with him a few months ago, and I
Nice.
brought that up. I was like, Boss Room's lethal self-defense. So I've met him a few times over the year. He's always been like my idol for MMA.
Yeah.
He's
How could he
amazing.
not
And
be?
yeah, and I've had the opportunity to train with him a bit. And this time I finally told him, I was like, hey, I'm gonna like fangirl out a little bit. I was like, I've always wanted to tell you this and I didn't, and now we're teaching a seminar together. I was like, I used to have your lethal street fighting DVD like way before I started training and all these things, and he was just like laughing his ass off. He's like, do you still have it? And I was like, I wish, because that
Man.
was pure gold.
Yeah, some
And
of the
that's how
best
we
stuff
got
I've
into
ever
this
watched.
topic. Yeah, that's how we got into this topic. He's like, look, like it looks cool, everybody watches it, feels great. But like if you don't practice these things over and over, you're never
Yeah.
gonna think that. You're gonna go
Yeah.
into panic mode.
Yeah, that's why like the dust thing, it's like, do you really think you can grab the slide off a handgun in panic mode? Like, come on. Like,
Yeah,
it's crazy. Like you said, you could pick it apart all day, but it's crazy.
you're gonna put your hand over the barrel.
Yeah.
You're gonna get your hand fucking blown off and your face.
Just put your finger in the barrel.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but hey, so
Just plug it.
but seriously, thank you for the message, right? I think more people
Yeah.
need to hear this, and I love the fact that you put yourself out there and you say, hey, like if you can't find a good gym, let me know and I'll find a good gym in your area. Like that's really cool of you to put out there, man. So hopefully a lot of people hear it from your podcast, hear from this podcast, and they do their homework so that they get into a gym that they're comfortable in and they want to continue going into, where it's a welcoming environment and a learning environment.
No, thank you. I mean, I tell everybody that all the time. I don't own any gyms. I teach and train at a few, but like I don't care about the money. If you live in another state and you want to hit me up and ask me for like legit gyms, I'll tell you. Like I have friends all over the world, and if you're not close to them, they know somebody else. The community for MMA is actually like really tight. I was telling my girlfriend this, like we might fight each other, but like legit people respect legit people. Like anybody I've fought, I have respect for. Anybody that fights, I have respect for. We can find somebody to help you, and I'm actually like very diligent about like I'll help you find a spot. I don't need your money. You don't have to pay me. You ask, I'll tell you. Like if you're in the city, you can do your homework, but if you don't know what you're looking for, it's hard. So, and I think most guys are like me. If you ask most legit people, they'll at least give you a legit recommendation. They won't tell you to go to like the chi place where they're teaching you to kill people with air.
Yeah.
Because I love martial arts. I love training, and I don't want to like shit on it and let people go and like believe all this like hoopla and get killed or beat up.
Yeah.
You know, it's a real thing.
And those videos can be so satisfying sometimes too, like where you see the chi master and they go up against like a real MMA fighter and they like put their hand up and this guy just comes in with like a right hook and they're like, what just happened right now? Like my chi must be turned off or something because this guy got a hand.
Well, that's what Rob was talking about in that podcast that you did. He's like, some of these guys truly believe that like they do have that kind of strength or that power. Like they truly believe it themselves. It's crazy. Like I've seen guys stand their hands down, just all right, light me up. It's not gonna work. It's like, what are you doing?
It's always some big fat guy that like
yeah
looks like I mean, I'm not shitting on that. It's just always some like odd looking person. Most legit guys I've ever met are very humble. Like from Stipe Miocic, Chris Weidman, like they're all friends of mine. None of them gloat about like who they would like walk in and be like, I beat the shit out of him, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I'm the fucking UFC heavyweight champion. I'm the UFC middleweight champion. Most legit people don't have to tell everybody and they don't feel like a need to posture.
Yep.
It's always the like the people that talk the most are usually the worst. They overcompensate. I'm saying usually.
Yeah,
There's some guys that
there's some
sell,
talkers.
I mean, there's guys that sell fights because that's their job.
Yeah.
But if you're just an instructor nobody's ever heard of and you just gloat about yourself constantly, like that's an instant red flag I'm throwing.
Will's gonna run into a talker here pretty soon. And he's gonna be like, "Dude, Chris told me of a talker," and he's just gonna get lit up like a Christmas tree. Watch.
Yeah, I'll come down there,
There you
hands
go.
down. See what you can do.
Yeah.
Oh man. How long have we been going already?
Yeah, I told you
I know we
15,
don't wanna
30
keep you-
minutes. We've been
Oh, you're good.
45, so I appreciate
just-
the time,
This is-
man.
Hey, no, thank you. Let's do it again. I love it.
Yeah,
yeah,
I'd love
super
to help
down.
you guys out. And once this comes out, send it to me.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I know
Absolutely.
Ramiro probably has to hop off because he's probably have to, with his new diet, he's probably going to have to.
So the carnivore diet, man. I started the carnivore diet. This is the second time I do it. I started January 1st. Energy through the roof right now. I'm loving it. Your boy's digestive system getting used to it. You know what I mean? So
I need to run into the bare knuckle cage or the ring.
You've done the carnivore diet before?
Yeah, kind of by accident. Like I was telling you, man, I'm a meat eater. What's your blood type? Do you know?
It's in my phone. I don't know off the top of my head. I should probably know that actually.
You mean you're gonna call
It's
your
in
mom?
my phone.
Yeah,
It's in my phone. Hey, mom.
No, so my girlfriend does nutrition plans and everything, and so here's one thing that I learned, and I didn't learn this until I met her. Her name is Whitney Johns, and she has her own nutrition programs, all that. But your diet depends on your blood type also. So I'm O positive, which means I have to have red meat. So like if I'm an O positive person and I do a vegetarian diet, it would crush me. You know, have you ever seen somebody go vegetarian, vegan, and they're kind of like just dead?
Yeah.
And I don't know the other ones, but all I know is like O positive like me requires red meat. So the carnivore diet is actually better for somebody like me. I don't know like all the science behind it, but I do know that when I did do it, I felt amazing. Now everybody else's blood type, you're on your own. Hit her.
You got to find out what diet.
It's WhitneyJohns.com. She'll help you out. But yeah, I did learn that, and I was like, no wonder I felt so amazing.
It's good to know, and I know I put because I donated blood here recently, and they asked me what kind of blood type are you, and I was like, I don't know. Do you want my blood? And they're like, sure. And then they're like, we'll let you know. And so I got my blood work done. They're like, hey, you're A-OK. Here's your blood type.
That's
and
not a
like,
blood type, man.
like,
A-OK. That's not.
Yeah.
Should be.
Yeah.
But they gave me a card, and I was like, I should put this in my phone because I'm going to lose this card. You know what I mean? Sure enough, I lost the card, and now I can't find it on my phone, so I'm kind of screwed.
You're going to find your blood type. Yeah.
I might have to, actually, because I can't find anywhere.
That's what I did. You're going to find your blood type. You're going to hit up Chris's wife, and then she's going to be like, yeah, you want to avoid all meats, and you're going to want to – meanwhile, you're like on the carnivore diet for 2 weeks.
Yeah. No, but I feel great right now. I feel great other than that, but it's you said you had a ton of energy.
I did. Yeah. I felt amazing. So shout out to Sean Baker. Cause I've been thinking about doing it again. Like I said, I did it by accident during COVID. And I've been thinking about doing it again because now I don't have to, but like I should. I felt great. That was when I got in the best shape of my life.
Yes,
Nice.
Will, I'm about to get in the best shape of my life right now, bro. We're good.
Yeah, I'm sure that's all it took, right, Chris?
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well,
diet.
Thanks again, Chris, man. Like I really enjoyed talking to you. Such a down-to-earth guy, and a lot of times when you go into something like this and somebody that has a successful podcast, that has had a successful career in the limelight, you're always wondering like, man, how is this going to go? But then we start talking to you, and like I said, just super down-to-earth, man. You made it such an enjoyable conversation, and I thank you for that.
Oh, thank you both. Hit me up anytime. We'll do it again. I got plenty more to say.
And we had some more questions too, around like current MMA news, but we don't want to keep you any longer, man.
Yeah, and shout out Fit Soda Media. You guys, I've been watching that channel for a while. Like I said, I mean, I remember when you posted about your first AMA when you fought Jacare on short notice and stuff. So I've been there the whole time. So like, yeah, you guys are doing a great job. I wanted to again, we got to do it again because I wanted to ask about the whole you guys did an episode talking about like drug testing, retiring so you can kind of escape drug testing and stuff like that. And I was like, it's so interesting. But so definitely check out that channel. It's just Fit Soda Media, right?
Yeah, it's just a YouTube channel, Fit Soda Media.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, let's do it again. You say when.
Yeah, and is there anything else that you wanted to plug while you're on?
No, just you guys, man. I appreciate it. I'll tell anybody else, like I've just started a podcast, like you said. Check out Involuntary Yoga. But for you guys, anybody listening, like leave these guys a comment, review, like it, share it. It all helps.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. And thank you for everybody listening. Shout out to Rich, our producer in the background. And thanks again, Chris. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, if you want to stay on for just a sec too, when it ends, you'll see the outro. If you want to hang on for just a sec.
Okay.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, everybody, for listening to this special episode of Story of the Fight.